Hi, I'm Will Francis. Tonight on Investigation Cryptoparology, we have Matt Jailed Montano from Pocatello, who is here to talk to us about mental health and the stigma around people wanting to self-diagnose. Matt?
How you doing, William? Thanks for having me on the show. To everybody listening, I hope you guys uh, learn a little something today. And like you said, my name is Matt Jailed Montano. If you have any questions, you can always catch up with me on Facebook. If you're not too sure about some of the things that I'm saying, let me know if you have a disagreement or any type of rebuttal for this. That's fine as well. I welcome all types of opinions. I'm not here to judge anybody. But however, during this podcast, it seems like I'm just going to be judging everybody. Uh, oh, did my mic go off, or was that you?
No, I was muting my mic. I had things going on in the background.
Oh, that's fine. I like to listen to everything in the background. Keeps me distracted. So, the stigma around mental illness. Okay, I'm going to have to jump out for a second here. I'm going to stay in the meeting, but there's something that I need to pull up to read to everybody, so if everybody can bear with me for a moment. Um, in the meantime, when it comes to mental illness, I just it irritates me. You know, um, the things that people do. People say about people that have mental illnesses such as depression, PTSD, anxiety, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and so on and so forth. It's never fun to have to deal with this on a daily basis. Some of us are on medication. Some of us have found other ways to help, well, I guess, with our mental illness, such as yoga, exercising, riding bikes, breathing techniques, and such, and those that are on medication, sometimes the medication doesn't fully work. And, so we rely on the medication and, exercises such as yoga, exercising, riding a bike, breathing, stuff like that. You know, we don't always have control over everybody. And as much as everybody in this world likes to have control over their situations, we don't. We don't have control over people's places or things. You learn that in the 12-step program, but we're not here to talk about that. But that is one of their big sayings. You don't have control over people, places, or things. That does apply to life in itself in general. It doesn't matter if you are an alcoholic, drug addict, somebody with a mental illness, somebody without a mental illness. The people without the mental illness, I like to call them the normal people, even though we know that that's just a label that we all know is fictional as well. You
Right.
know, um, there is no such thing as normal anymore, but mental illness is real. I'm not going to talk statistics today. I'm not going to say a percentage of this and a percentage of that, because we can go into statistics all day long. And yes, it's science. Sometimes some statistics in certain subjects have to do with polls that, these companies take, on like how many people would prefer to buy an Audi over a VW. So we
Right.
won't get into statistics today. We'll just get into the stigma. So I just had this conversation with somebody. This is going to be what I'm going to read to you real quick, and then I'm going to go on from there. Please stop with the mindset of treating it as a trend. It is not a saying on a coffee cup or a shirt. Stop self diagnosing and treating it like a trend. Please seek professional help so you and the professional can come up with a good treatment plan. It's not a choice for us and never was. Glorifying mental illness may lead to the spreading of misinformation. By doing so, you feed into the stigmatization that already surrounds mental illness. This may discourage people with a mental disorder from seeking out help. Mental illness is not a trend. Now, am I allowed to cuss?
Yes.
I don't know. Fuck yeah, I was behaving this whole time.
No,
Okay.
on the podcast, when I go to upload it, I always choose explicit. And on all the other podcast players, it even says not intended for children.
Okay. Well, I mean, and to be honest, I think children should see this. I really do. Um, the
Yeah,
reason
but
why is children are, or parents are self-diagnosing their children as well. So I think parents and children do need to see this podcast. So to the parents and the children out there that do listen to this podcast, Forgive my language and the things I'm going to say, but maybe some of it will help you, some of it won't. Who knows? Again, this is just based on my experience with mental illness. For I have PTSD. So to the parents that are listening, if your children, if you're self-diagnosing your children, don't. Just don't. Okay. If you think your child has any type of mental illness, seek professional help. That's what they're there for. They're there to guide us through our imbalances of life.
Right.
Don't just run around and tell everybody, "Oh, my son has depression." Just because you told your child no and they get sad about it, that doesn't mean they have depression. Children will be children. They're gonna be upset. They're gonna be sad when they get told no. You know, mom, dad, can I go get an ice cream? No, you can't. And then they get sad or depressed. I mean, how my daughter does it. You know, she puts her hands above her eyes and she puts her head down. And I don't diagnose her with anything. You know, children will be children. They're still trying to figure out their emotions out. They're still trying to figure their feelings out. They're still trying to figure life out. Let's stop diagnosing our children. Let's stop self-diagnosing them. Let's take them into a professional. If you really think something is going on with your child, seek professional help. Again, it's the spreading of misinformation when you do that. And by doing so, you feed into that stigmatization. And again, it discourages people with a mental disorder from seeking out help, which is why we have suicide. Um, People self diagnose, they don't get help, and then they commit suicide. Or the people that believe they have it are afraid to say anything to anybody. I was for the longest time. Now I don't care. The world can kiss my ass. I have PTSD. I'm proud of the fact that I have a mental illness. And what I mean by proud is I own up to it. I'm not scared to deny it. I am not scared to speak the truth about it for myself. I have PTSD. The reason I have PTSD is because I was a firefighter for a lot of years. Um, tow truck driver down in Los Angeles. And a lot of the times when we get called out to those fatal accidents, we see bodies. I've seen bodies ranging anywhere from newborns all the way up to the elderly. And the coroner sometimes doesn't get there in time. Being both a firefighter and a tow truck driver does take its toll on you mentally. So I was diagnosed, I want to say 4 years ago. I believe it was 2019, if I'm correct. Yeah, it was, because I had a heart attack that year. 4 years now. I have been living with it. 4 years now, I have seen the state of our nation go into glorifying mental illness, um, spreading the misinformation, violence, and all that. People want to say, well, you shouldn't sell a gun to a person with PTSD. You're probably right, but you're probably wrong. We need to leave that to the professionals. And if you guys consider the professionals the government, then that's something you've got to work out with yourself. Whatever you consider the professional, again, that's something you got to work out within yourself. Guns are a huge thing, you know. Um, we think, I think I may have lost you for a second there. I had a phone call come through.
No, you're fine. You're still there.
Gun control, and mental illness. No matter how much you put control on guns, a person who's mentally ill is going to find a weapon and is going to commit the atrocities that they commit, or is going to kill themselves. It's there no matter how you look at it. Criminals will always get guns. People with mental illnesses will always find a way. Life will find a way.
Correct.
And that's just how it is. You know, it's the circle of violence, you know, and it's in nature, it's in us.
Yep.
But I've also seen over the past 4 years, and this is going to be a touchy subject too. Nobody wants to talk about the LGBTQ plus community and misinformation of mental illness being spread, not only through the straight community, but the I'm just gonna, for now, to shorten the letters up, just we're gonna say the gay community, even though we know the LGBTQ plus covers a wide range of it, but just to shorten it up so I don't have to say that every time, we're just going to say the gay community, the gay bi community. You have a lot of people, while I respect their personal lifestyle, or their personal choices, I don't down anybody for wanting to be gay, lesbian, transgender. If you want to wear a dress and you're a man, that's entirely your thing. I am not going to judge you for it. What I am going to say is mental illness runs huge in the gay community. And it's because they are being persecuted non-stop. The atrocities that were committed against them. I grew up in Southern California. Our gay community was West Hollywood. And down there, you can see the things that were committed against them. Now, I'm not going to say atrocities. That makes it sound like I'm Hitler and I'm going back to the Holocaust. I mean, that was an atrocity. The bad things that had happened. It's not okay to beat on somebody just because of the life that they choose or the things that they feel. A man can feel like a woman can feel like a man. However, I don't believe that a lot of them do have mental illness because they self-diagnose and then they never seek professional help. And who knows? I could be wrong. Some of them may self-diagnose and never get the help because they're afraid to see a therapist and admit to their therapist that they are part of the gay community. For what would you call it? For being judged, William? Is that what they would call it? For fear
Yeah, I
of being...
believe so.
So, folks, we apologize for the break there. Okay, we had to go over some ground rules, but it's not going to stop what I'm talking about. I mean, yes, we have rules as human beings of things that we can and cannot say. I personally don't care, but out of respect for the podcast, I will not use that particular topic. So back to what I was saying. They might feel persecuted. That could go for anybody, though. It doesn't matter what community you belong to, as far as gay, straight, heterosexual, homosexual, whatever the case may be, black, white, purple. I don't care. I don't really care. Mental illness can hit anyone. It can hit William. It can hit me. It can hit my wife. It can hit my kids. Of course, if it hits my kids, I will get them properly diagnosed. I mean, I have a son who's on the autism spectrum, and for a while there, we wondered, and then we finally went and got it taken care of. And I love him to death. Ain't no different. And that's the thing with people with mental illness. We just gotta love them to death. We don't have to walk in it.
You are correct. It could hit me, and it did actually hit me. So ever since I was a kid, everybody well, not the doctors, but my family's always, he's got ADD or ADHD. And then my mom finally got tired of it, and she actually took me in to see psychiatrists, psychologists, and other doctors in the mental health profession. And they actually came back with a correct diagnosis after 20 some odd years that I actually have Asperger's. And then on top of that, I also have PTSD, and it has been diagnosed professionally, and severe depression and anxiety. So yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from.
It's a touchy subject for a lot of people because for some, it's still taboo. It is a taboo topic. For others, they don't want to face it. They are closet mental illness is the same as being a closet homosexual. You don't want to come out of the closet for fear of being persecuted.
Right.
I'd say it's okay to come out of that closet and wave your mental illness flag. Don't wave it to get attention, but don't be afraid to show who you are. Sometimes it actually helps people get a better understanding of you as a human being, of, oh, that makes perfect sense now, as opposed to them feeling like they need to walk on eggshells. I always suggest never walk on eggshells around anybody with any type of mental disorder or mental illness. We are everyday people like everybody else. I work a job where I bust my butt hours upon hours upon hours. I get stressed out like others do. And, I put my pants on one leg at a time, like everybody else does. One thing is, just don't treat us any different. We're no different than anybody else. Like, oh my God, Matt has PTSD. That's not, oh my God, Matt has PTSD. It's, hey, I'm Matt. I don't openly admit right off the bat, like, hey, I'm Matt. I have PTSD. I'm like, hey, I'm Matt. That's it. I don't mention my mental illness, not because I'm afraid. It's not a, anyway, it's not a good topic starter, especially if you're a man trying to hit on a woman, you know. Not that I need to do that, but I'm just saying, you know, any single people out there watching this podcast um, might understand, you know. A lady walks up to me and goes, "Hi, my name's such and such, and I have PTSD." I'm going to be like, "Wow, that escalated quickly." But because I have PTSD, I'm going to understand. But at the same time, it's going to be like, "Wow, that escalated quickly." It's the same thing with a man. It's
Oh yeah.
not a good pickup line. It's not a good conversation piece. Don't be afraid to let them know in conversation. But starting off in conversation, man, that's not a good conversation piece to start with. You know, again, don't walk on eggshells around anybody with a mental disorder or mental illness. It's not cool, actually. You know, I don't like being treated like I'm a baby. Like, oh my God, don't trigger him. Dude, you're triggering me by doing that. You know, it's like,
Right.
that's stupid. You know, it upsets a lot of us even more, you know? And I'm not gonna walk up to somebody without a mental illness, dude, and walk up to them and fucking treat them any differently. You're a human being. I'm gonna treat you the same. But I also have that firm belief though, and I think everybody should carry this belief. Treat others how you want to be treated. But don't treat people with mental illnesses like shit. Don't treat us different. We're not 5-year-old kids learning the alphabet. Trust me, we know how to walk and talk. We don't need anybody's help. So um another thing, stop glorifying it. That is the thing that pisses a lot of us off. Like I read at the start of this, okay? It is not a saying on a coffee cup or a shirt. A lot of you like to use that, oh my God, I haven't had my morning coffee yet, so I'm going to be a complete asshole or a bitch, and I'm triggered now, and I have anxiety until I have my cup of coffee. Um, Unless you've been professionally diagnosed, as far as I'm concerned, you're just an asshole whether you have your coffee or not. So a cup of coffee ain't going to change the way you are. It might calm you down, but some people call that an addiction, I believe. Coffee addiction, you know. Um, might call it a trend. Just stop doing it. Okay. Just don't. It's not a fucking saying on a coffee cup. It's not a saying. It's not fucking cool. What you're teaching is you're teaching these kids to self diagnose to the point where they convince everyone around them, including themselves, that something is wrong with them. And there could be, there could not be, but stop encouraging that. Stop encouraging to self-diagnose. Stop encouraging the trend. It's not a trend. It should never be a trend. It should have never been a trend. And if anything, man, if the thousands and thousands of people that listen to this, or even the hundreds of people, or even if there's only 5 people that listen to this, I want you to please understand it is not a joke to have a mental illness. It is not a saying. It is not a trend. You don't put it on a fucking bumper sticker and slap it on the back of your car. I wear my flag proudly, but I don't put it on a bumper sticker to let others know. If people do ask or it does come up in conversation, hey, I will say something. I will let them know. I am diagnosed. I am not self diagnosed, never was self diagnosed. I started seeing a therapist to get diagnosed because I tried to commit suicide 4 years ago on several occasions. And I finally thought to myself, hey, I think I need to go seek therapy. At no point did I need to go seek therapy because I thought I had a mental illness. I sought therapy because I tried to end my life. And I thought having that person to listen to me would stop those urges to put a knife to my wrist. I actually almost bled to death the first time. And I was very thankful that I had a couple of people there to save me and get me the help that I needed. Did that stop me from trying it again? No, I tried it a couple more times before I finally woke up and said, hey, you know what? I need to seek professional help. And when I did, it wasn't an immediate diagnosis. It wasn't like, oh, you have PTSD. It was more of just simple talk of who I am, my background, why I tried to kill myself. And then as therapy sessions went on, I got diagnosed. When I got diagnosed, I'm not going to say the world made a lot more sense to me. It just wow. I was like, cool. Okay. I mean, I completely understand why I go from 0 to 60, which is, by the way, I'm also diagnosed with bipolar. Um, I can also understand why things were triggering me. And it just, I guess you can say it made a little more sense, even though I just said it didn't. It does actually. It's just kind of like, wow, that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense why I fly off the handle like that. I mean, here this whole time I thought it was just because I was an asshole. I still am, but I'm an asshole with a mental illness now. So
Now the question is, you say you're an asshole. Is that a self diagnosis, or have you been diagnosed as an asshole?
I've been diagnosed as an asshole and joking by my therapist. I wear that proudly as well. My therapist used to joke with me and tell me, like, dude, I hate looking at your sessions. I'm like, why? And she's like, because I need therapy when I'm done with you. She goes, you're kind of an asshole. And I'm like, yeah, I am. Well, I'll own up to that. So, yeah, good question in the form of a joke there. I like that one. I am a self-diagnosed asshole. No, I'm not. My therapist actually believes I'm an asshole. I I am. I'm not saying that because of my therapist. But I have my reasons. Um, it doesn't matter the community you belong in. We live in a fucked up world anymore. We really do. And it's causing anxiety for the lot of us. It's causing stress, obviously. Anxiety does come with stress. It doesn't mean you have anxiety. It doesn't mean you're diagnosed
Mhm.
anxiety. But hey, don't listen to me if you feel you are. Go get diagnosed. But we live in a pretty crazy world. I mean, poverty has always been around. Wars becoming a lot more frequent. Um, the the gay community has fought for so long to get their rights against the straight community. That's just been a war in itself. The black community is fighting with the white community. I mean, everybody's fighting with everybody, and a lot of us are self-diagnosing at the same time. Um, you can get PTSD from multiple things. You don't have to be a veteran. God bless our veterans. Nothing bad about them at all. Okay. But you don't have to be a veteran to have PTSD. It can come from a bad childhood to being beat to, hold on one second here. My kids are at the door. My
Yep.
gamer. Yeah. So I'm going to mute you guys just for one moment here.
Yep.
In the meantime, you want to take over and give your opinion, that'll fill a little bit of the hole. I'm in a Zoom meeting. I will be done in a little bit. When I'm done, we'll see. Go.
I mean, I really don't have anything to say. I mean, I've said it, time and time and again on other episodes that the podcast has actually recorded. You know, I agree with everything you're saying, and I'm sure my listeners will probably agree. But I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to go, "Well, you don't know what you're talking about because you're not a doctor." But see, that's just the thing. You don't have to be a doctor. You go to a doctor to get diagnosed, and the diagnosis that the doctor gives you, well, that's it. That's the diagnosis. So what he's saying, he's actually been diagnosed by a professional that yes, he is an asshole. Yes, he probably drives his therapist crazy, but at the same time, he was diagnosed with PTSD. And I mean, and like he said, you don't have to be a veteran. You can he like Matt was talking about earlier in the episode about he was a firefighter. I've actually done the volunteer fire. I was never actually with the fire department, but I have gone to accidents that I mean there are several that have stuck with me over the years that I can close my eyes right now and it's like I'm right there. I can see everything. Uh, I've actually mentioned one in particular in the past. There was one accident that I actually went to that actually sticks with me. And the less I talk about it, the more it comes back. The more I talk about it, the more it stays away. That makes no sense to me. But then again, I'm not a psychologist. But me and a friend of mine had actually gone fishing, and we went to fishing at a like a paid pond where you just you pay and you go fishing. And both of our pagers went off, and we talked to the guard that was there to watch our fishing stuff, and we took off. Well, now, when we got to the accident, it was an elderly lady had rear-ended a flatbed trailer with 3-inch round pipe on it. and the truck driver was freaking out. And we didn't know why he was freaking out, because he was obviously not injured. And then we got, around down the side of his truck, and we seen where the car had actually went under the flatbed trailer. So the step for the flatbed trailer was sitting on top of the engine, and then pipes were just jutted out and through the car. Now, Daryl, my friend, when he first walked up to the car, he's like, well, she's sitting upright and she's holding on to the steering wheel tight. Maybe she's in shock. So he walked around to the other side of the car, and I was still standing on the driver's side of the car. And he opened up the passenger door, because that was the only door that would open. And he's like, ma'am, are you okay? And he's like, well, Will, he said, there's a pipe. And I said, pipe where? And he said, through the front windshield, look where it's going. And it looked like it had went through the front windshield and crossed her left shoulder and went through the headrest. And her window was partially down, so I grabbed the top of the window and shoved it down in that, well, basically busted it at the crack and shoved it down in the door, because we didn't have any cutting tools or anything on us. We were just in a personal vehicle. And so, I got the window down, and I just lightly tapped her on the shoulder. I said, ma'am, are you okay? And then the whole left side of her head just fell over on her left shoulder. The pipe had hit her dead center in the middle of her forehead and split it right down the middle. And that, anytime anybody says anything about firefighter or anything, that's the first thing that comes to mind. But like I said, the more I talk about it and the more I tell people about it, these are things that can cause PTSD, the more I don't think about it. Because when I'm just sitting alone, it's what?
Exposure therapy for me. That's why I continue to do the job that I do. And my therapist says the more we talk about it, the easier it does get for some of us. And she's absolutely correct. The more I talk about it with her, the easier it gets. Now, I can understand where you're coming from, man. I mean, I've been there when the bodies were being yanked out of the car, when they're being put in the body bag. Being a tow truck driver, we generally don't mess with the bodies, while they are still in place. But as a firefighter, you do. So, I mean, I got the crap from both sides of the fence. And you have to excuse me for a second. I'm picking something up off my floor that fell.
Oh, you're fine.
My foot is my PS4 controller or PS5 controller. My phone. Wow. I mean, I might just let you guys look at the bottom of the chair. But it's never fun. Police officers go through it, firefighters, paramedics. What helps me is I'm part of a team that starts from the accident to the victims, to the people on the call first, to the first responders, to the tow truck drivers that are there to pick up the vehicles, to the doctors that are working on the patients, to the coroners, to search and rescue, to the volunteers. I mean, I'm grateful for everybody out there. None of us have an easy job. None of us want that kind of job. Some of us live for it for adventure. Some of us live for it because, it's a job. It takes a special human being to do the things that we do, and to do the things doctors and firefighters and police officers and ambulance and so on and so forth do. I mean, they deal with death and destruction on a daily basis. It's not an easy thing. I got a couple week breaks. That gives me a little bit here to just kind of recoup from years of doing this. But I sure as hell miss it. It's never an easy thing for me, though, when I go out on an accident and see the death. The last fatal I went on was just south of town here. I'm not allowed to go into detail, but I mean, it was in the news.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing too. What you guys read in the news, you guys get part of the detail. We're there. We get the whole thing. And a lot of the times I'm like, man, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear it from the officer or the ambulance person. They volunteer it to us. But I also look at it as in maybe that's their way of getting it off their chest and dumping it onto the next person. So that way they can feel a little more relieved. It's not easy for anybody to have a mental illness, regardless of the circumstances, how it developed, where it came from, whether it's from stubbing your toe on a, on a dresser to, you know, trauma in childhood to whatever your job is. It doesn't matter, where it came from. What matters is how you cope now.
Right.
That's the best thing. I always recommend, if you can't afford a therapist, go to the gym, find a constructive thing to do. Not destructive. Destructive is going to keep you in that mindset, and when you're triggered, that mindset doesn't go away very easy. Also, for people who don't have a mental illness, please remember that those who are triggered, it doesn't just take 5 seconds or 5 minutes or an X amount of time. There's no set time as far as like the short time frame. A lot of people like, oh, PTSD, you're triggered. It must take fucking 5 minutes. No, it doesn't. It takes a lot of us with PTSD hours, sometimes days, sometimes years to work through our trauma. I mean, you had mentioned about that lady, the accident you had just talked about. I mean, that was cool to hear about that, by the way. Thank you for sharing that with me. You and I have gone out together and done a lot of singing and hung out, dude. This is kind of a topic we never really talked about a whole lot until I recently posted that. And I bet you it's never easy for you to bring that up, but it's nice to hear it from other people. Um, it lets me know that I'm not alone. I've known I'm not alone, but it lets me know when I talk to others who have PTSD and listen to their experiences and their trauma, I always think to myself, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not the only one. As far as the suicide rate, like I said, I'm not going to go into statistics. And those are just numbers, man. These are human beings that are ending their life on a daily basis because of the mental illness that they were diagnosed with, and they don't have the proper coping skills. Doesn't matter. Mental illness does not pick a gender. It doesn't care about your gender. It doesn't care about your sexual orientation. It doesn't care about the color of your skin. It doesn't care about anything. All it cares about is just living in your head and renting space in your head. And that's all it cares about. It's like a stray bullet. A stray bullet doesn't give a damn about any of that. It's going to hit something. It's going to hit something. It's going to hit somebody. It's not like the bullet's going to fly towards a white person and go, oh no, that person's white. I'm going to move on and hit the black person instead. Or that person's black. I'm going to move on and hit the gay person instead. Or this is happening in the Bronx and I'm going to move on and let it happen in Redondo Beach, California instead. It does not discriminate at all. Not at all. But,
right.
But you do get discrimination, and for having a mental illness. You also get discriminated against when you have a mental illness, dude, and you're not diagnosed, because those of us that are diagnosed, we do get upset, dude, with the people that use it as a trend. That's the whole purpose of this conversation. Is I'm pretty sure you read that on Facebook. That simple thing, it just. Yeah. I go through a daily life doing my thing. Got into a conversation with somebody yesterday, and these teenagers, man, they buy into so much bullshit that they feed each other. They tell their friends, I might have depression. I might have depression. This is why I think I have depression. And then their friends feed into it. Oh, you do, you do, you do. You and John broke up and you're depressed. So you know what? You have depression. Nah, motherfucker. Okay. Until you've been diagnosed, you and John broke up and you're depressed. It does not mean you have fucking depression. I know when I lost my first wife, I was depressed. Did not mean I had depression. I was fucking depressed. Same with children. Just because a child gets depressed because they get told no does not mean they have depression. They got told no. Now, if you're again concerned about it, go get diagnosed by a professional, not by your parents and not by your peer pressured friends. Your friends, unless they have a degree, are going to lead you on a path of destruction when they do that. And It's not a path you want to go down. It's not an easy path to walk some days. So please go get diagnosed. Stop walking around with this attitude thinking that you are depressed and you have depression when you haven't been diagnosed. Again, if you're concerned Go get diagnosed properly by a professional. You know, just because John broke up with you, it doesn't mean you have depression. You're a human being. You're going to have feelings. Not telling you not to have them. What I am telling you is to seek the proper help. Go through the correct channels. I don't have insurance. Try to get some. You know, I mean, our system's kind of designed to fail us anyways, but you can still try anyhow. You know, it's again, I emphasize this. I really emphasize this. It is not a trend. It becomes a trend, and it makes it hard for people to go and seek help. Okay? I don't know what you got to say to people or what you got to do to people to get them to understand that this is not a trend. Mental illness is a serious issue. PTSD does take people's lives. You know, depression does, bipolar does, borderline personality does. You do end up taking your life when you have a mental illness. Doesn't mean you do, you know, not everybody does, but it is a serious issue. If you notice that your friends have a mental illness, again, I'm gonna repeat myself until I bang this into people's heads. Don't treat them any differently. You also got to remember too, having a mental illness doesn't mean that we want to talk to everybody, because we, like everybody that has fought discrimination, feel discriminated against ourselves. We, for decades, decades upon decades, have been told, get over it, get through it, walk it off, shake it off. You're fine. Fine. Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. We are not fine. We are not okay. We are doing our best to walk through it. We are doing our best to get through it. We are not just going to snap our fingers like fucking a witch or a genie and magically just be okay. A lot of people do commit suicide because when they do try to talk about it with others, that's what they get told. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. I wouldn't be talking to you about this if I was fine. I thought you were my friend. I expected you to listen to me. I expected you to understand, well, not understand, but hopefully let me vent to you. You set the expectations as my friend to let me vent to you, and now you're telling me just to get over it. I think I'm going to go home and put a bullet in my head. And that's what happens. They end up killing themselves.
Okay. Well, to everybody that's listening, here's a case in point. My best friend from the time that I can remember, you know, way back when I was still living on the reservation in North Carolina, you know, way back in the sticks where we didn't have water lights or anything. I met this kid and we stuck, you know, by each other all through, you know, school, junior high, high school. And then when we got out of high school, we actually were working at the same place, and we'd go fishing every weekend. You know, we requested the same days off so we could, you know, go fishing because that was his release. Because he grew up in the home that he grew up, he was actually molested by his mother and his father. He was messed up and pretty much messed up in the head from when he was a child, and then some of his family members did it, and you know, other things happened. He went into the military. He actually Section 8 out because, well, you know, he couldn't handle it. And he calls me one day. He wasn't at work, and it didn't make any sense. And I was like, okay, so how come Paul's not at work? It's, you know, I'm asking the boss man, did he call in? No, he didn't call in. He just didn't show up. And so he actually called me on my cell phone, and I answered the phone on my break, and I talked to him. He's like, hey, we're gonna go fishing today. You know, go down to the lake and camp out like we always do. And I said, yeah, why wouldn't we? And he's like, okay, I was just checking, you know, just making sure. And when I got off work, so I got home. I actually had two vehicles at that point in time. That's back when I was living in North Carolina. And so I dropped off the car to my mom because that way she'd have a way to, you know, to go around while my stepdad was at work. And I got my pickup, threw all my fishing gear in the back, and went over to Paul's, and all his fishing gear was sitting outside the door, you know, to the apartment. And I got it. So I went and got it, put it in the back of the truck, and the front door was open. So I just, you know, I knocked on the door frame, and the minute I stepped foot into the living room, he pulled the trigger on the shotgun. I don't know if he was expecting me to not show up. I don't know. I never seen it. I mean, I would always talk to him, I'd always ask him, how you doing? How you feeling? I mean, but it was just two guys, the way guys have a conversation. It wasn't we never really went in depth. I never knew. I mean, I knew about his past and his childhood, but I never knew anything beyond that because he would never say. And that would lead back to what Matt was saying about, fear of persecution. Somebody comes out, okay, well, this is wrong with me. You know, you automatically think, well, should I tell somebody? Should I not tell somebody? Should I just keep it to myself? And I mean, that haunts me to this day. I mean, because he was like a brother. I mean, I walk the minute I walk in, and then he just ends it right then and there. I I wish I'd have left work. Now looking back, I wish I'd have left work sooner, or just when I found out he wasn't there, go to his apartment and find out what was going on. I mean, to this day, it still hurts. I mean, it was a loss to me, but it was a tragic loss to him because he ended his life over something that he never came out and told anybody. Now, talking to his sister, everybody found out what it was. Paul had, everything that happened to him when he was a child being one thing. And then his sister said he constantly talked about it and constantly, sought help for it. But then Paul was also gay and nobody knew. And it just drug him down because he was scared to tell anybody. He couldn't tell his parents, couldn't tell his grandparents, couldn't tell any of his family. He could have told me. I'd have been fine with it. Doesn't bother me. But he never told anybody. And but his sister knew. I think he actually told her. And his sister said that more than likely that's probably what caused it because, not him being gay, but, hiding something for that long and then seeing everything on TV, how, people were being beaten in certain states. And then, how the LGBTQ plus community was being downplayed, that it didn't matter. And it was just a culmination of many, many different things. And, having PTSD from what he, trying to think of the word here, from what he went through as a child, and then up to the present day at that point in time, it weighed on him. And it was like, he never said anything, so I couldn't go, hey man, well, maybe you need to go see a psychiatrist or anything. Maybe if he did, maybe he'd still be here, maybe not. But I mean, it's just a case in point that PTSD does cause, and depression, anxiety, everything else. Once everything compacts on you, it can cause you to commit suicide, or in your case, attempt it.
I think what you're saying too is really, really good because how long ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh Lord, I'm 46 now. I was 21, 22 when that happened. So
A couple of decades ago, it was pretty normal to not come out and admit that you were gay or transgender or any of that. Again, back then, maybe 20 years ago in the early 2000s, 80s, 90s, 70s, it was not very well accepted to be gay, or to any of that. So a lot of those people just stayed right in the closet, for fear of being persecuted. And a lot of people probably had into their lives like your friend did because it was just one thing that was weighing on their mind. It was weighing heavy on their chest that they couldn't explain to anybody for fear of persecution. And that's the big thing about having a mental illness is even if you are diagnosed, it's again not a conversation piece. I wear mine proudly because I'm not afraid to tell people I have it, but there are others out there that don't. There are others out there that have been properly diagnosed that don't say anything at all for fear of persecution. And also gender did play a big part of it. It's getting better now, But men were always thought to be the macho, the man of the house. Got to work, got to take care of the wife, got to take care of the kids. I got to pay the bills. And I can't let anybody know how I'm upset, how I'm sad, and how, that's been a big stigma too. The machoism, it, I don't care who you are. I don't care your gender. I don't care your gender identity. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. I mean, again, I'm under Matt Jailed Montano on Facebook. You feel free to hit me up. If you cannot run to your family and admit to your family that you're gay, go seek a therapist. You can message me too, that, hey, maybe we can figure it out together and how to help out, and help your family understand that. I don't have the answers, but it's always nice to have somebody stand by your side. Somebody supports you in your time of need. When you have a mental illness, it's always nice to have the support system. When you have a mental illness, you're going to think nobody gives a fuck. And some people don't. There's a stupid thing that went around Facebook a while ago. I forgot what it goes, but the gist of it is these people are not going to walk on eggshells, and you have to change who you are as a person to suit their needs. Your mental illness is not an excuse to be who you are. They're kind of right in a sense, like I mentioned before earlier in the podcast, that don't walk on eggshells around us. We want to be treated just like everybody else does. But however, telling us shit like that, like, hey, your mental illness is not an excuse. You're right, it's not an excuse, but sometimes it happens. We don't use it as an excuse. It just happens. It happens. Nobody wants to have PTSD. Nobody wants to be depressed. Nobody wants to have anxiety. Like I said, I was diagnosed bipolar, PTSD. PTSD is fun because you get a whole world of emotions that go with it. And so it's not just like, I have PTSD. It's like, hello, depression. Hello, anxiety. Hello, 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 hello. And it sucks. It just not a fun thing to live on.
Well, I gotta go ahead and get this out there. I know how many times that you've attempted suicide in the past, and I will be as being a good friend, and I've always tried to be a good friend to you. And I don't think I've ever done anything to wrong toward you, and even if I did, I apologize, whatever. But if you ever succeed, if that thought ever comes back into your mind and you ever succeed, just be prepared. I will find a way through necromancy or something else to bring you back, and I will do it properly.
Do what you got to do, man. I'm going to read you a little something, dude. Speaking of the survival attempts, okay? I survived because the fire inside me burned brighter than the fire around me. Okay? My desire to live outweighed my desire to die. It outweighed the problems around me. Yes, I did attempt it. I survived because I wasn't ready to die. I thought I was, but I wasn't. I was not ready to die. At that time, that was 2019. I had only had Zeta and Kaden and Sissy. I didn't have Kaomi yet. Ryan was living with us, my oldest son. My oldest son. Yeah. He still lives with us. And thankfully, I am still here. I'm happy to be here every day. The world is a fucked up place, that's for damn sure. But I still am happy to be here. I'm happy that I survived. I'm happy that I get to share this information with others. My experience wasn't all the greatest, man. I mean, firefighting, tow truck driving. I'm not going to say I had a shitty childhood. As a teenager, I created problems. It was of my own doing. So childhood had nothing to do with it for me. I mean, was my mom perfect? No. Was she abusive? Yes. But define your standards of abuse. Getting spanked, that's not abuse. Getting smacked upside the back with a golf club, yeah, that is abuse. Getting choked and have a knife being held to your throat by your father, that's abuse. But because your dad smacks you upside the head and tells you to stop being an idiot, or because you get spanked on the bottom because you wouldn't listen, that's not abuse, man. And, you know, a lot of people use that general thing as, well, I was spanked, so I have PTSD. No, you were spanked because you're an asshole and you didn't want to listen to your parents. And that's how discipline works. When I grew up, being spanked was a normal thing.
Yeah. And for any teenagers who may possibly be listening to this, let me go ahead and tell you, your parent, but by your parents taking away your cell phone or your car keys or your PlayStation or Xbox, or, you know, telling you can't hang out with your friends, this is not abuse. This is no reason to go around saying, you know, I have depression or anxiety because my parents took my Xbox away, or, you know, sold your Xbox or whatever. This is good parenting. Okay. Regardless of what your friends are telling you and regardless of what you're self-diagnosing yourself as, your parents are not abusing you. Your parents are raising you the proper way. If you want to, you know, go back to, you know, go back in the past, me and Matt aren't too far off in age. And when I grew up, there was no game. Well, okay, there was the Atari, but that's I wish I still had an Atari, but
Hey, dude, I got
games
my
are
ass
so
handed
much
to me
better,
growing up. I
right?
got my ass handed to me. These fucking teenagers now have it easy. They can simply call the cops. My mom spanked me. And you know what? We still have cops out there that are like, dude, shut the fuck up. You got
Right.
discipline. Go the fuck back inside. Take your punishment and fucking deal with it. You little
Yeah.
fucking pussy.
Yeah, my grandparents actually raised me, and my grandfather would never raise a hand to any of the grandkids, or, you know, or my cousins or anything like that. But what he did do, and it was, I mean, it's something that, you know, everybody, you know, will well, anybody who grew up on a reservation would tell you about their grandfather. Most grandfathers, my grandfather had this thing to where he would actually grab you and toss you across a room. And whichever way you landed, it didn't matter if you landed on the back of your damn neck, you stayed in that position until he told you to move. And he demanded respect. One of my cousins, I actually watched this. One of my cousins decided that he was going to leave home and go live with grandma and grandpa, because he didn't believe in his parents' discipline anymore. So he always goes out, and he goes out and he parties the night before, left me and, you know, me and my grandpa doing all the work. And he always slept in the nude. I have no idea why. I didn't ask, and I'm not going to ask. But my grandfather got tired of it. My grandfather one day tells me, he says, "You're off today. You're not doing anything." I'm like, okay. So I didn't have anything to do. So I just sat down on the front porch. My grandfather went to the barn, got the mule, backed the mule up to the front steps, got a long ass section of rope, wrapped it around the pommel on the saddle on the mule, and then led the rope back in the house, up the stairs, wrapped it around my cousin's ankles, walked back outside, smacked the mule, and watched the mule yank him out of the bed, down the stairs, out the house, butt ass naked. Now that could have been considered abuse back then, although it was funny as hell when it happened. Today, that would be, you know, lock the person up in jail, you know, because they yanked a 15-year-old kid out of bed. That's the difference between when I grew up and the way kids are growing up now. The way kids are growing up now, it's time out. You know, not even go sit in a corner, just set their time out, take an Xbox away, take a phone away. Hell, we didn't have any of that. And even if we did have any of that, it still wouldn't have been that, right? We still would have got the hell beat out of us. But we
My
grew up
kids,
respecting people.
my kids, man, they have respect for people. They're knuckleheads though sometimes, but because they have structure, they have stability, they have discipline. If they want to play a video game system, like I have a PlayStation 5, my boys don't have shit. My daughters don't have shit. If they want to play a game system, they will ask me. They will do chores around the house to earn it. Then they have a time limit. And when that time limit is up, it is time for them to get off of it. If I have to come down and tell them to get off of it, that's fine. You know, because kids play video games. Sometimes they're a little track of time.
Right.
You know, sometimes they want to sneak in that couple extra minutes, which is fine. It happens. You know, um, our timeouts consist of removing everything and removing them from any fun situation. Our living room is not a play area at all. the place that they play their toys is in their playroom downstairs in their playroom. Just like I have my game room. That's where my music equipment is. That's where my PS5 is. That is my personal, I guess people would call it a man cave. That's where I go to escape. I don't go upstairs and do all this crap in my living room. I don't go in my room and do it. I have a different kind of fun in the bedroom with the wife. But I won't go into detail there.
Yes, please don't.
But their discipline consists of being in a room that does not have any. I don't send them to their room. The boys share a room, the girls share a room. When they get in trouble, they don't go to the room together. One of them will sit in one corner, one will sit in the other. Sometimes, they say to put your child in the corner by their age. They have short memory spans. I don't know about you, man, but if I sat in the corner for 15 minutes, I'm gonna think the whole fucking time pretty much like, why am I in this corner?
Right.
But kids nowadays don't have that attention span anymore. They're like 2 minutes later, can I get out of the corner? How long have I been in the corner? You've been in the corner 2 minutes. When are we going to get out of the corner? When I say you're good and ready to get out of the corner. 5 or so minutes pass, maybe 10 minutes, and I'll sit down and talk with them and remind them. I don't spoil my kids. I do the sandwich. I don't know if anybody's heard that. The peanut butter jelly sandwich is positive, negative, positive. You compliment them. Then you say something negative, not saying like you don't call your kid an asshole or anything. You don't do any of that. You just say like, hey, you're a really amazing person, but this is what you did and you need to work on that. And then you come back with another positive thing, such as you need to work on that. And I think you'll be really good at doing that. It kind of gives them that self-esteem. It also, it helps them understand that discipline doesn't need to be yelling. It doesn't need to be spanking.
Right.
Sometimes it does, man. These teenagers nowadays, they need a fucking ass whooping. They do. They have no fucking respect for nothing, not even their own fucking parents, man.
Right.
I was in the Walmart one day and I'm standing there looking at something in the electronics, and this teenager just fucking walks right in front of me without saying excuse me, and then stops right in front of me and starts staring at things. And I tapped him on the shoulder. I was like, excuse me. I was looking at something right there, and you just so rudely walked in front of me. He looked at me and he goes, I don't care. And I balled my fist back, did not give a fuck how old this kid was. And I went to swing at him, dude. And my wife caught my arm, said, don't. And that kid's like, what are you going to do? And I said, you are lucky. You talk to fucking another adult like that, their wife may not be there to save you. Okay.
Right.
Mine is. And I hope to God, I told him, and I hope to God you don't talk to your parents like that, because if you were my kid, you'd be fucking picking your teeth up for talking to me like that. And that's the problem. And then there we go. Them kids, because they have one negative interaction with somebody or one negative interaction with their mom or their dad, they all of a sudden self-diagnose with depression, PTSD,
Right.
anxiety. I have anxiety because my dad disciplined me.
And that's the reason why I brought this up, so people could see how kids are acting nowadays, how it feeds into the stigma of being self-diagnosed.
Now, are there kids out there that have mental disorders? Yes. Are there kids out there that have mental illnesses? There are kids out there that are 7 years old in therapy because they're growing up in an abusive home, or they're growing up in a home where mom and dad fight too much, shit like that can cause PTSD. That can cause some emotional scarring. But just because your parents told you no, you can't ride your dirt bike today, you can't play your fucking Xbox today, I'm sorry. That's just a fucking no-brainer for me. Like, dude, you got something taken away. It doesn't necessarily mean you have anxiety. Now, the problem with that is, well, my dad takes my Xbox away from me once a week, so I'm developing anxiety. How about you develop a better fucking attitude towards your dad and listen so you don't get your Xbox taken away once a week?
Well, if he takes the Xbox away once a week, you could combat the anxiety and get up off your ass and go outside.
Yeah, I mean, we're anxious to play our Xbox. We're anxious. That doesn't mean we have anxiety. We're anxious to get our Xbox back because we got it taken away from us. Doesn't mean we have anxiety. Right. So another thing about PTSD. PTSD is not the person refusing to let go of the past, but the past refusing to let go of the person. People with PTSD, man, they're a whole different breed of people, man. They're strong fucking people. But I also believe people who don't have a mental illness are also strong. I know people that have been through some shit that don't have a mental illness that are really strong.
Yep.
I just don't think it's a joke. I don't like the fucking trend. It actually, me and a few of us, and there's only a few of us that will admit it because we're afraid to be persecuted for our belief system. That how do you know they don't have PTSD? Dude, when you have PTSD, you can tell. You know,
Mhm.
that's like a black guy can tell another black guy's black. It's obvious. You know, I mean, color of the skin. PTSD is the same thing. You know, we snip each other out, man. Very simple. We don't go looking for it, but it's like, you know, the
Oh
minute you
yeah.
start talking to somebody, you're like, this motherfucker's got PTSD. And then it comes up in conversation and they're like, yeah, I do. And you're like, yeah. So 9 out of 10 times we're right. You know, that 1 out of 10 times that we're wrong, believe you me, dude, that person probably does need to go get diagnosed, you know, but we're not diagnosing them. We can just tell, you know, it's a whole thing, but it's not a trend for me. I don't have a single fucking coffee cup in my house that says I have anxiety till I drink coffee. I don't have a single t-shirt in my house that says I have PTSD because I banged your mom and she didn't make me a good sandwich. You know, it's not a fucking joke to me, you know, at all when it is a trend. When you walk into these fucking shops everywhere, these stupid gift shops and Spencer's, you know, and all that. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention any particular stores on
Oh,
air
you
here. So
can say whatever you want to
Spencer's,
say.
sorry, you
I'll say
know.
whatever you want to say.
You know, and some of these stores are not what they used to be when I was younger, but you walk in there and you see it left and fucking right. Like it is throwing in our face like advertisement constantly, you know. So we're replacing one thing with another, you know, one addiction for another. Now nobody's addicted to cigarettes, but fuck, everybody wants to have depression. Trust me, you don't want depression. It fucking sucks. You know, we're replacing alcohol with anxiety. You know, we're replacing drugs with PTSD. You know, um,
Hmm.
it's not okay for these people to be buying into that shit and thinking it's a trend. Like, oh my God, I was hanging out with Steve by the locker the other day and he mentioned he had PTSD. And I was like, oh my God, me too. Do you get shut the fuck up, man? You go get fucking diagnosed. Just because your fucking buddy has PTSD doesn't mean you have PTSD. And if you want PTSD, though, hang out with me. I'll give it to you. I'll be more than happy to share some of mine with you. But
Yeah, I could tell
um,
you some stories that probably give you PTSD.
oh, dude, yeah, we could probably sit down for a while and trade stories, you know. And I don't think the listeners want to hear it, you know. Sometimes they probably should because they're like, "Holy fuck, I've experienced that," and then of course they probably should because they're like, "Holy fuck, I experienced that. I have PTSD." Nah, dude, you don't until you get properly diagnosed.
Right.
That is the huge and key thing. I'm not doubting that the person next to me in the store has anxiety when they say they have it. I'm not doubting that these teenagers have anxiety. I'm not doubting that anyone has it. What I am doubting is, like I said, we can tell when somebody does or does not have it. We have it. We know best. You know, I mean, like you said earlier, you go to a therapist, and at that point, it's just a diagnosis. They give us the coping skills. They may not have personally ever experienced what we have gone through, but they're trained to recognize it and they're trained to give us the tools to utilize how we get through it. The person with the mental illness is the one that says, I hate to say this, that knows best. And until you're properly diagnosed, um, you know, you just stop making it a trend. It's not cool. I don't want the person I'm married to or my female friends or any of my friends for that matter to say, oh my God, you have PTSD. So do I. Because you have it. No, I want my friends to not have it. I want my friends to live happy, healthy lives where they don't have to worry about seeking professional help. You know, I want them to live a happy everyday life where they don't have to worry about taking a medication to calm them down, to, you know, help them through their day. I don't ever want them to have an episode of what we go through. It's not fun. When somebody with anxiety gets triggered, it sucks. When somebody's depression gets triggered, it sucks. And somebody's PTSD gets triggered, it sucks. Um, I do ask, though, as a community and as a society, to those that are listening, and please share this information with your friends. I know I have been all over the board, and do what you want with this stuff. You're more than welcome to message me. If you have a rebuttal, you're more than welcome to question what I'm saying. I do ask that you do not belittle me, because I will not hold a conversation with you. Just like, I know I sound like I'm belittling others, but it is a little frustration to have to deal with that kind of stuff, and knowing that this is a trend. It is a mindset that has become a trend. But you are more than welcome to ask me anything at any time. I've mentioned several times how to find me on Facebook. I do have an Instagram. I'm hardly on it. Please, I have a Snapchat. Please do not Snapchat me. I hardly check the fucker. Don't. Okay.
And you're more than welcome to use the contact form on the website for the podcast. If for any questions that you have for Matt, I will forward them to Matt, or email us and I will forward that to Matt.
And if you are suicidal, it's okay. It's okay. Okay. To feel that way. It is completely okay to feel that way. Seek professional help, though. Call somebody that you know can help you through the bad situation, and help you through that moment. We may not have the answers to help you through the rest of your life, but sometimes we have the answers for that moment, and that moment can make a difference in somebody's life. For those who don't have a mental illness and want to do the research, get on your internet, get on your computer, Google it. I don't really pay attention to a whole lot of what Wikipedia says, because sometimes that is misinformation that's on there. Go to your health professional and talk to them about it. If you feel like you have any type of mental illness, please go get diagnosed. Don't become another statistic. Don't become another deal that's a trend, to where you're discouraged to go get help because your 10 friends have a coffee cup that say they have anxiety until they have coffee. Okay. Stand out. I'm never going to judge somebody who has a mental illness. I don't have the right to. One, because I have it. Two, even if I didn't, I still don't have the right to judge somebody. Only God can judge me. Only God can judge you. Only your higher power, for those that don't believe in the religion I have. As far as the LGBTQ plus community, um, to me, you're no different than anybody else. As far as the straight community is concerned, you're no different than anybody else. As far as anybody's concerned, you're no different to me than anybody else. I don't care about your age, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, color of your skin, any of that. I don't give a fuck if you're a 90-year-old woman in South Africa, dude, who's battling AIDS. If you need to reach out to me to talk to somebody, do it. I don't give a fuck. I don't judge. Okay. But please, it's just all I ask is stop using mental illness as a trend. Stop using it as a trend to get attention. That's not cool, because what you're doing is you're tying up the system for those that really do need the help. And if you honestly believe that you have anxiety, please, or any type of mental illness, please go seek professional help. But don't tie up the system just because you're bored, just because you think it's a trend. Like, oh my God, my buddy sees a therapist, so I need to see a therapist too. And it's a trendy thing to do. No, you're tying up the system for the person who actually needs to be in there, getting the help that they need. Because you want to see it as a trend. That actually irritates a lot of fucking people, man. It really does. It irritates a lot of people who are trying to get in and get diagnosed, who are trying to get in and get the help that they need. And they're not there to tie up the system, while some are. Don't do it. Please don't do it. But again, I do encourage you to seek professional help. I do encourage you to reach out to people you can trust. I do encourage you to say, fuck everyone. It's okay to have mental illness. There is nothing wrong with it. For those that have borderline personality disorder, I know personally that is a hard one to deal with. And I know that one takes a lot of different type of handling. I think that's one where, in particular, it takes a little bit of a special handling. Those people, however, are no different to me than anybody else, but they do take a little bit of special handling. But to those that have that type of illness, please seek professional help. For those who have PTSD, anything, please seek professional help. I hate to play one more than the others, because I mean, I've dealt with people with borderline personality disorder. That is not a fucking joke at all. That is
No.
no joke. Those people, I feel bad for them because they've got so much shit going on in their head all at once. Like, I don't think their mind ever slows down. Um, as opposed to like me, I have PTSD and my mind runs 100 miles an hour. But what's great is I could admit that to people. When somebody asks me what's wrong and my mind's running 100 miles an hour, I tell them right now, man, my mind's running 100 miles an hour. I'm a little triggered about something that happened today on the job that I had to see. And just give me a minute. I'm trying to sort all this shit out.
Right.
And that's the thing with people with mental illnesses. They have a million different things running through their mind. Their mind's running 100 miles an hour. And it's really hard to sort it out. But one thing we don't do is we don't throw it on a coffee cup. That's not how you sort it out. The professional help that you get will give you the proper tools. If you want to know what works for me, I go to the gym. I play music. I mean, I have a lot of cool things to help me out. This right here is part of what I do, to calm down. This right here is part of what I do to calm down. This right here is part of what I do to calm down. I have my own little cave that I run into and hide. I'm also a musician, so I've had the luxury of being up on stage and sharing my energy with others. I absolutely love doing that because there's always one person in the room, and I don't give a damn. People can contradict me all they want on this. There is always one person in the room at a concert that is just having a shitty day and debating whether they want to end their life or just disappear because of how bad their day is because they have a mental illness. As a musician, I am really honored and grateful and privileged to be up on that stage performing for everybody. And I always find one person in the crowd to communicate with, even if it's just a few minutes while I'm on stage, because I don't know the kind of day that person's having. And I do have people walk up to me and are like, man, you were awesome. You were great. Thank you so much. I needed this today. And I've had people walk up to me and admit to me, like, man, I didn't know if I was going to come today or not. I didn't even think I was going to make it through my day, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I showed up, and I'm glad that I'm here. And thank you for the message that you're putting across, through your music. Um, it's never easy to be that man up on stage who has a mental illness. I got to act like I don't. And that's a shitty deal. I got to portray the musician. And there are statistics that musicians are very fucked up people, man. And I'm not talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I'm talking about we spend days and weeks and months away from our families on the road, eating shitty food, playing in fucking venues that sometimes don't take care of us. In a sense, I'm kind of glad I backed off of it and don't do it as much anymore, but I still play at home. But I am grateful for the opportunity to entertain. Um, it's a beautiful thing, man. I'm going to end really quick here, or shortly here. I appreciate everything that having me on here today. I know I rambled on, ran in circles with all of this. I know at some points it felt like I was contradicting other points, but the moral of all this is, please, I will read it one last time. Okay. And glorifying mental illness may lead to the spreading of misinformation. By doing so, you feed into the stigmatization that already surrounds mental illness. This may discourage people with a mental disorder from seeking out help. Mental illness is not a trend. Please, it is not a trend. Please stop with the coffee cups. Please stop with the bobbleheads. Please stop with the t-shirts and the underwear. It's not funny. It's not cool. It's not okay. I understand that, sometimes you got to break the humor up with a little bit of that, but it's not okay. You know, um, we don't enjoy it, and it does lead to misinformation, and it does lead to people self-diagnosing, and that self-diagnosis can be very harmful if it's not treated. You self-diagnose, you can't seek professional help, therefore you can't find a treatment plan that works for you.
No, I
as
totally
far as
agree.
as far as the ones again that want to commit suicide, there is a national hotline number. I personally don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure you can find it on the podcast. William may put it up. I am
It's
Matt
actually a
Jailed.
part of. It's
Go
actually
ahead.
a part of it's the National Suicide Hotline number is actually a part of the outro of the podcast.
I do know that there's also they've implemented that new thing like 411. I know you remember what 411 is, but I
Yep.
know it's you text it now. Let me look that up real quick.
Yeah, it's actually you text home to 741-741. All capital letters, HOME.
All right, let's see. There you go. So, if you can't reach out, please do that. Okay, I don't care. Actually, on here it says 988, but I'm gonna take your word for it. I've never had to use it. So, but again, for those that want to commit suicide, please reach out to somebody. I'm Matt Jailed Montano on Facebook. Reach out to me. Okay. If it's dire and you reach out to me, send me a friend request, or call me. Call me on Facebook, and I will wake up and I will chat with you. I would rather save your life being a complete stranger and becoming your friend and help you through it than have to know that you have just become another statistic, another number, because that's generally once to your family, you're not, but to those around you that don't know you, you are. You're just a number. Don't be a number. You're a human being, man. Treat yourself as such. And for those that do end up committing suicide, that are alive now, I understand your pain. I understand that you want to do it just to get out of pain. We're not committing suicide. They're not committing suicide to be selfish. That's how they end their pain. It may not end the pain for everybody else, but that's how they end their pain. And they don't think about everybody else. For those, again, that have any questions, feel free to ask, contact me. And I just, dude, be better to each other too. Be better to each other. That's all I can say is just be better to each other. Mental illness is not a fucking trend. And with that, I say goodnight.